This is the ERP Advisor.
All right, thanks everybody for joining us for another Leaders in ERP. This is a really important series that we've been doing for almost a year and a half now. And we've been very fortunate to have some phenomenal people that are really changing the ERP industry from the inside out and all around. So, very excited for our discussion today. Of course, you know me, Shawn Windle, founder of ERP Advisors Group, independent objective, and been in the market for a ton of time here. But I'm really excited to have Nick Kopp, who's the CEO and founder of Rillet, with us here. So, Nick, why don't you say hi to everybody and then we'll jump in.
Hi, everybody. Really great to be here. Good to see you, Shawn.
Yep. Thanks again, Nick, for coming too. So we had a chance to meet a couple weeks ago. You all had a great event in San Francisco. I happened to be there and came in, and it was awesome to talk to a lot of the customers and partners. You've got a great ecosystem, Nick, that you've built up. You all have spent a lot of time in a short amount of time, I may say, condensed sort of building out really a startup, right, from the get-go, which, you know, ERP and startup is almost like an oxymoron, but that's not the case anymore. So maybe you could give us a little bit of background into why you founded Rillet. It's a pretty interesting story, and you know, it takes guts to disrupt such an established industry.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for having us. We love it. That's sort of the TLDR. We love what we're building. We love sort of the impact we have, what we create here. So it's hard to your point. So for everybody maybe and all the listeners that are not familiar with Rillet yet, so the short version is we're an AI native ERP. So think of this as sort of a legacy cloud ERPs with some of their functionality plus a lot more reinvented for the AI era, truly. And so we have over 300 customers today, are powering some of the fastest growing companies in the world, like the Mercors or Function Health of the world, and are also well-funded venture backed by Sequoia, Andreessen, and Iconic. I've raised over $100 million there, and yeah, started a company 4 years ago here with this crazy mission and idea that we could rebuild ERP for the modern age. So I'm very excited to share the story and journey here.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And I think it's great for, frankly, all of us in the ERP market to sort of just look here and say, like, we got to make things better and we got to do it. And I think you guys have done a great job with that. You know, maybe why ERP when you were
Yeah,
looking back several years ago? Like, you have a really fascinating story. I read a little bit
yeah.
about it, but would love for you to share that.
Yeah, no. So we are basically a group of accountants, finance nerds, building ERP software. So, I started the company 4 years ago with my co-founder. He's sort of technical brain. I was on more the accounting and finance side of the house, and a bit of all-rounder. I'd helped build businesses before. So the impetus was at my previous company. So we helped build a fully regulated bank from the ground up. So we're a bunch of 20-year-old kids basically building one of the largest continental European retail banks from the ground up. Was one of the first to ever got a full banking license in like whatever it was, a decade or something. It was a really long time. And as part of that, I also helped run some of the finance and accounting functions. And so there, some of the key insights I had was that it was exponentially hard to get the most basic of financial information. I would wait like 4 to 6 weeks in some cases with a super capable team. I want to start there. We had phenomenally capable people on that team, consolidating between multiple different entities, trying to make sense of numbers, nothing tied. And so when we realized that we went out to the market to buy a proper ERP system, like any company would as they grow up, right? And so what you saw there was just you were confronted with a really old tech stack. You were confronted with a buying process that felt an implementation process that felt quite antiquated in
Mhm.
many regards. And so what we tried to do here, and we did the same to that in that bank that we built, is like bring a consumerized, fresh take on a stodgy old industry. And that's sort of what stuck with me and what sparked the idea to embark on that crazy venture. And then on the personal side, given to your point, it is so hard to build what we're building, you need a bit of like a emotional spark to really go pursue it, because otherwise rationally, if you just chart out the probability of success on a curve, like it is so low, I think it's not rational to start a company. So emotionally, it was for me deep interest in the space and domain. Like, what cooler thing is there to build it from the ground up, debits and credits, integrations, workflows, systems, reconciliations, everything soup to nuts. Shawn, you will know a lot about this world as well. And then the
Mhm.
other piece is just we can have a lot of impact here. So getting this right will mean foundational change for a whole profession, and also companies that run on sort of the backbones of accountants and systems there to take better financial decisions. And so that's sort of our contribution to the world, and I think we'll hopefully have a profound impact in the next 5 to 10 years.
I love it. I mean, being around the space for so long, we are seeing that a lot of our clients, like their key people, in the accounting industry, are leaving,
Mhm.
right? We have this gap in resources that's come about too. So the automation is just going to help out everybody. So I think it's great. I think it takes a lot of guts, and I'm excited to see where you guys go for sure.
Yeah, no, and it's sort of this debate that's currently ongoing in the wider sort of professional white collar professionals, of AI and the impact of AI. Like AI will have a profound impact on the accounting profession in the next couple of years. You see how the models get better and everything else. It's really impressive. But I think the gap, to your point, Shawn, is so big between the work to be done
Yeah.
and the people and the hours in the day to do that work, that I think for a very long time, first we'll just fill that gap with agents and software, and then even from there it'll just be an upskilling for the current sort of population. So I am not worried about accountants futures and professions. It's more of a huge opportunity, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, well, and even today, right? I mean, we see a lot of AI coming in around advanced search and data visualization for sure. I mean, there's a ton of value in just that alone if you think about the productivity of that. But with customers today, like what are you seeing from an AI perspective on how they improve their core financial processes?
Yeah. So for AI is a bit of a buzzword, right? Everybody throws around AI, slaps on AI and stuff. So and also if you look at the accounting profession, or the workflows that profession does, or like let's make it very tangible. The individual, maybe accounting manager or senior accountant, would do it at month end. Um, we'd go through a lot of data ingestion, going through unstructured data, and we'd go through a lot of outputs of visualization, comparison, reconciliations of data. And for these two types of processes, I call them the bookends, sort of on the way in to the ledger, or the before, you perform your the proverbial debits and credits. Basically, there's a lot of unstructured data that needs to have gone through, and then after, at the end, once you have the data, there's a lot of reconciliation, checking, summarization of information. And LLMs are phenomenally powerful at both of these bookends. And then in the middle
Mhm.
pieces, and that's sort of to maybe appease or calm the folks that are maybe a little bit more skeptical on AI. The middle pieces are very well run deterministically. So a prepaid schedule, a deferred revenue schedule, revenue amortizations, all of this is very well done through the deterministic model, very predictably always producing the same output. But the things around that take so much time, every month-end close can truly be automated away with some of these models. And I'm happy to talk about use cases too, but yes, just at a high level, that's where we see the biggest potential on these bookends.
Yeah, I love that. It's a good analogy. And I mean, there's so much, like you said, that, if we've got a month end close checklist, right? And it's pretty straightforward and people follow it month end, a month after month, year after year, but yet it still takes a long time. Like the real why in there, right? Like I think you're saying is if you can automate some of the tasks that are required to do that, I mean, you still need the key people to perform the function, right? Those don't go
Yep.
away.
Yep. And also the way we deploy agents in our system, and we're sort of in early stages. Everybody's kind of figuring things out. These models get better so quickly. Um, there's an opportunity in 2026 specifically to set the blueprint for what AI and accounting truly means. It's a really exciting opportunity. And so the early sort of use cases that we have, and the agents that are performing active work, all of that work in Rillet at least, and I would hope that in most other systems out there, is very much so well reviewed by humans. So there's never a application of AI that will just book a journal entry without review, or that will just perform an operation without a human truly having reviewed it. But the preparation steps thereof, like a flux analysis is a great example where you compare period over period. The first draft of why these periods are different, down to the line item level, vendor summaries, everything else, that an AI with today's capabilities on January 30th, where we are recording, can do. and then the human can review and approve basically the explanations and go through it. And so that's where you see the first basically manifestation of these agentic workflows, and all of them are still have a human in the loop and will for a pretty long time, is my hunch.
Yep. Now I understand. I have to bring this in. It's just actually just coming across this even today. This idea of like the social media for the agents, right? Where the agents are coming together and starting to interoperate,
Yep.
regardless of humans. It's forget about the human in the loop. It's like the humans just like the audience watching all this. Like for real, when we talk about, data security, which of course is a big deal for ERP, it always has been, it always will be. Like, how does their data stay confidential and not get into
Yep.
models? Like, how are you guys handling that? Maybe a high level. I'm sure you guys have a ton on this at a detailed level, but what would you say?
Yep. Yep. So the starting point of all of this, none of our customers' financial information will get shared out with any of the model providers that we use. Starting point of the whole discussion. So
Mhm.
and I can share a bit more about Rillet, how we go about this. So we're working with all the foundational models. The models in themselves are like moving so quickly. So we work with OpenAI, Anthropic, um, XAI, as well as Gemini, all four basically.
Mhm.
And we are basically then using the models depending on the workflows. Certain models perform better on certain tasks. And then our sort of unique IP as Rillet is how do you mix and match these models for separate workflows? How do you train these models on the individual accounting workflows and tasks that exist? How do you teach these models to withdraw information? Again, permissioned information that only lives on our side. We mix the intelligence into our systems. Our data will never go back out into the other systems, but mix that intelligence in to then produce certain outcomes and workflows for human beings. And that's really sort of the IP that gets generated, the tuning, the sort of context engineering that comes with that. That's where really the magic happens. But again, the data lives all in our systems, which it does anyways already securely on the cloud, before and would never get back into sort of the upstream data model providers that some of us don't trust, right? So from that perspective, I think that's a really important starting point to your point. And it's really fascinating also. You made the introduction there on like, how these things work together. It's a little bit of an aside, but like I get goosebumps sometimes seeing these agents collaborate and like, okay, I
Mhm.
did this part, I'm passing off the work to that part, different models, seamlessly everything in the background. It is where the future is going, but yeah, security is really important as a backbone to all of this.
No, that's great, and I think this is why application vendors like you guys are like the last mile. I mean, it's a heck of a lot more than the last mile concept, but you spend so much time, and you're incented to by your customers, by your recurring revenue model with your customers to ensure that you've thought through these issues 10 times or 100 times more than they ever would on their own. Like to go
Yep.
out and use a model on your own, you're taking on a lot of responsibility. And I think that layer that you guys provide it just makes a ton of sense. And I can remember back to years ago, this thing called the semantic web from Tim
Hmm.
Berners-Lee after the internet, a couple,
Hmm.
20 years after it. But now that we'd have services talking to each other. And that is exactly what the agentic universe is. And we're there. Like, and you guys are
Yep.
seeing it, on a day by day basis. Like, do you think that your clients, would you say, um, do they like are they really they're focused on like the close, right? I think it's a big deal for you guys is to
Yep.
reduce the close down as
Yep.
much as possible. But are they also like, we are experimenting and doing things within the Rillet framework? Are they leaving that more to you guys? How does that sort of work today?
Yeah. It's a great question. So we are, there's two strands to this. So there is a set of customers that is just basically, I'm closing up. These are the couple of tasks I need to do. I'm closing my books. I need to reconcile my revenue, like consolidations of multiple entities. Like it's just like very execution oriented
Mhm.
and are very excited about what we're building, but very much consumers of the technology that is being served.
Mhm.
Full stop. It's like, cool, you have this thing, new thing. Does it help me? Yes or no? If yes, I use it. If no, I don't care. I move on basically with my current workflows. System works perfectly. I don't need the net new addition that we have. Um, and then there's a whole set of other customers, and that's maybe more interesting for your listeners to get a sense of that are highly incented and curious about what's going on. And it has multiple flavors there. So that one flavor is we have some of our customers work directly with our engineering teams. So we have a
Mhm.
some of these very intelligent AI engineers on the team, come from all the top schools, and ran through all the programs, the research labs, everything else. And our own team likes nothing more actually than working with customers to get real use cases that they can kind of noodle on and sort of work through. So like there's a heavy engagement on that side. That's really fun to watch also for me as a founder of like, it's magic. You bring sort of like the two, I don't, two people you like the most, like your customers and your team kind of together, and they create something magic, then it's good for the company and what you're building. So that's sort of one big area. There's also an element of MCP. I'm not sure how familiar your listeners are with that, but um, it is, we have this basically MCP connection where you can in your own workflows then draw information into your own workflows, build charts, dashboards. We have customers that built their own ARR workbooks and dashboards, financial analyses into fully like fleshed out pages, web pages to reshare, permissioning, everything else off the back of that. So that there's a lot of tinkering that you can do there, which is really fun if you're into that type of stuff. And then yeah, these are probably the biggest two sort of like thinkers and builders we have. We don't have people yet today that then there's a whole evolution of that where you could start building your own agents and so forth, but that gets pretty complex. And I think people would need to be enabled to do that a little more than the technology is available today, basically.
Yeah.
That's sort of the holy grail where this can go, basically.
I love it. I mean, we're always, proponents of a gradient approach with enterprise software as, hey, let's go buy a whole bunch of stuff and it's all going to work and everything's going to be fine. Doesn't
Right.
quite work that way, as we know.
You built the whole business around that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But most of us come from that Big Four background where we're doing those huge systems, and some companies can afford that, but even those, it's tricky, right? So that I love that gradient approach, and I can see how, I mean, I could get pretty philosophical here quickly. I won't, but as a race, humans, we can only take on as much change at any given time, right? So I see that you guys are providing like a pathway, right? Because it is a tricky time to buy ERP right now.
Yep.
I mean, we have clients, we have people that'll call us. They might not even be the right, we might not be the right firm for them, and they're certain sizes or whatever. Say, we had a $2 million services firm call us recently and say, like, we need to do something around AI. We have no idea what to do, right? And we gave them some ideas. Gave them your site, some others as well. But they really want this AI solution, which they're trying to figure out what the heck it is. So I love the idea that you guys can, give solutions today to like, the controllers, the CFOs, like, I got to get my books out. We're private equity backed, we're fast growing. Like, the last thing I'm going to spend my time on is doing the close. I've got to figure out the next round of financing, et cetera, et cetera. Two, hey, let's collaborate a little bit around, the lease accounting, or I mean, there's so many problems I think in accounting that are just half solutions. They're not full solutions. They only solve half of it. Bank recons. I mean, I can think of many different things that we've struggled with clients, and even promised clients in the past. Yeah, you're going to get this functionality on procure to pay automation, and you're going to see these efficiencies. And then we get into it, and you run into something, right? So then having the ability to collaborate with you guys and go through some of those use cases, I mean, that's really cool. I'm really excited about that because I think you can have, I think the platform provides that kind of flexibility where you can start building solutions quickly.
Yep.
And then, spin them out. We went through the whole cloud evolution over the last 20 years so that now you can push out those features to customers, and they might not be ready for them, but at least they're there. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and there's also a little bit of an evolution that I'm curious if you've seen the same thing here, Shawn, is like, yes, we have cool tech and I'm very proud of what we've built, but there's also a human element where I think some of the legacy firms or ERPs have started taking their customers really for granted because where else could they have kind of gone? And so there's also an element of, I think I just sense a sense of optimism in the profession basically around this where like, oh, cool, you're actually going to listen and incorporate my feedback. Oh, cool. Like I sent this to you and I don't need to wait 18 months for an email to say like, thank you for the feedback. It's like, you've built it in 3 or 4 weeks or whatever it was. So there is just an element of like humanness and interaction that's really magic currently, or like kind of palpable around really very thankful for it. But in general as well, I think there's a lot of optimism that comes with it as well, which is hopefully we can all sort of like use to propel us into this future.
And hope, I would say. I
Yeah,
mean, that's really what it comes down to because, from the early days of cloud, we were supposed to do that from the beginning. And I think, when an organization is a certain size, it can be more nimble, has to be, like it actually, you have to be.
100%. Yeah,
And then over time,
yeah.
you get to a certain size where you don't have to be.
Mhm.
And man, customers, they don't like it. Now they don't like switching ERP more than, lower customer service,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, you all have really, made the market look and say, are there really other alternatives out there? And I'm interested in that. And I think I mean, I get to sit kind of like the Switzerland of ERP. We don't
Mhm.
really market ourselves
Yeah.
that way. Maybe we should. So I love seeing the competition, and I love seeing organizations that are well funded, from early stage and seeded like you guys are to the incumbents that do have a lot of capital.
Yeah.
These guys have been just like raking in the dough for years on these recurring revenue
Yeah.
models. So it's great. I think
Yeah.
I think I'm very excited for what you guys are doing, and I frankly appreciate it. It's not just because more companies are asking questions about ERP. No, no, no. It's that we've been selling these promises for years, and we're getting so close to be able to do it that we're almost there. So
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
but
And it's
maybe
beneficial for the customer at the end of the day. Like it'll be a uplift for everybody, basically, all the users. So it's awesome.
I think so too, and that's what I love the most. So then when we look forward, maybe think about the ERP market over the next, I mean, I don't even know 5 years out, but maybe it's the next year or two or three. What will the market share kind of look like from sort of the legacy or incumbent ERP vendors, and we have you all coming into the scene, and we sort of have, the usual factors of companies outgrowing QuickBooks and other smaller apps, or they're on these large legacy apps they want to get off. Are you guys kind of creating a new space between these more complex ERPs and base kind of bookkeeping software? It's like
Yeah.
it's a brand new category, would you say? Or is it more you're taking on market share from these guys, or maybe a little bit of both? What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's a question I get a lot. We people put us in this, and that's where we started. Like, in this box of like, okay, only QuickBooks graduates, or like, are there like a better version of QuickBooks? That's what I heard a lot. And there's a big market there, so I want to start there. Like that market, there was a little bit of a complacency, I think, between some of the bookkeeping platforms that you mentioned, and sort of the more mid-market systems like a NetSuite, Oracle. I think it's okay to mention
Sure.
on the podcast here, and QuickBooks, for example, on the lower end as examples. There's a few others in both of these echelons or layers, and so that was a great entry point for us. It's just like a faster to implement, uh, more powerful version of QuickBooks that have multi-entity consolidation, multi-currency, some deferred revenue workflow. So that was sort of the starting point. And yes, there is a bit of a market that you could create and kind of take in as a company, and build a business as a starting point. By
Yeah.
now, though, what I see shifting, and that's where sort of I think general optimism in the industry, but also for me as a founder, it's very rewarding to see, is some of the bigger companies are starting to take interest. So what's happened since we launched into market 18 months ago, so we're new as a company,
Mhm.
built in stealth for like two years plus, launched the product 1.5 years ago, and then yeah, it's been up and to right since then. And what's happening now in the market most recently, especially in the last sort of 3 to 6 months, is we have very large corporations either buying Rillet, like coming directly from a NetSuite or a Sage Intacct.
Mm.
So 30% of our business are full mid-market mature systems that we're ripping and replacing today. While we still get 70% of our business from the sort of the rising cohort, so that is still a steady feed. We have public companies now on the platform, which is again was unconceivable for us even like frankly 6 to 12 months ago.
Right.
Some of them also larger companies. That we're working with, and you have just some of the largest private businesses as well inbounding and taking interest. Not all of these folks will buy eventually, right?
Mhm.
So there may be gaps still in the platform, or there may be things we want to build, or specific use cases, or it's too hard for them to rip out. But you literally have $100 billion plus market cap companies considering sending their whole teams in, considering to take a look at the software and sort of like what's going on here. So there is something is moving that was distinctly different from even literally just 3 to 6 months ago.
Wow. Yeah, that really puts it in perspective. I think there has been this pent up demand for just, better ERP solutions. I'm going to say it. And we work with all those guys and everybody else, and we've had great successes with them, but it's just time for change. And I think you guys are at the right place at the right time, but you're also defining that, which I think is very exciting. Is there anything else that you would say? So, we have a lot of people that listen to our podcast that are like, okay, guys, that's fine. But like
Mhm.
my job is depending on getting the right software
Yeah.
that's going to set up my organization for like, maybe the next 10 years. Like, what would you say to those people that are like maybe a little wary of doing something newer?
Mhm.
There's always the safe, you don't get fired if you bring in
Insert.
blah.
Mhm.
Right. Exactly. So what do you say to those people?
So I think there's two elements of this. Element number one is at least that was really the bane of our existence when we started, right? Like who else is using you guys? Whatever else. I think by now we can comfortably point to more than 300 customers, references, back channels, partners,
Mhm.
large top 10 accounting firms working with us. Like we can point to a lot of social proof and references that already get some people in sort of isolation, kind of over that hurdle, basically. And then for the folks that are still a little skeptical, what I leave them with, cheekily, but I think there is actually a pretty strong bit of truth in it, is yes, you may look like an early adopter today buying Rillet. Yes, it may be a little unproven and it's not as perceived as safe as an Oracle or an NetSuite is. But
Mhm.
think about the rate of change that's happening in AI and the innovation that's happening just in increments of weeks and months. You can feel it. How
Days.
are you going to look with a long-term decision that is an ERP? Buy an ERP today that in 5 years will still look the same, while everybody else is using something that's fully AI powered and helping them to take close faster, better reports, whatever else. There's just will be a very big dispersion, basically, riding the horse when majority of folks are starting to drive that car. And so, again, some people it's early. I fully respect that, and I also don't want to be oblivious to the difficulty of that decision. But I think there
Yeah.
is something there with the rate of change, given how long term these buying decisions are, where it may make sense to just take a bit more risk, maybe if you're a little skeptical, and see if it would work out.
Yeah. I think that makes a ton of sense. And so it might not be for everybody now, but I mean, to your point, you don't want to find out that it wasn't for you 5 years from now when your competitors and everybody else is in a position where they're able to leverage, the more standardized processes and things are going to come out. But it really is an exciting time. And I think Nick, I really appreciate your time. So of course, Nick Kopp, the CEO and founder of Rillet. Thank you again for your time. This is the Leaders in ERP series. It's part of the ERP Advisor podcast that we've been doing for many years. And again, I really appreciate your time, Nick. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having us. It was awesome, Shawn. And for folks that want to follow along, we're pretty active on LinkedIn. Shawn and I sometimes go back and forth on comments and posts. So, yeah, feel free to follow us on Rillet on LinkedIn, or myself as well. Feel free to connect. I'd love to hear from you.
That's great. Thanks, everybody.